What is going on, everybody? It is the Icebreaker here, back with another video with the regular season upon us now. I kind of need to get this out in the open just before the regular season kind of kicked off. So I'm going to give you guys my playoff bracket for this upcoming NHL 2022-23 season. Yeah, we still don't even know who's going to make the playoffs, but we're going way ahead of schedule here. Some people asked me about putting in a bracket for the NHL playoffs, and even some people said about the NBA playoffs as well. I'll probably do that. And even though the Sharks and Predators did technically play their first regular season game Friday, October 7th, this video is being recorded Saturday, October 8th. So this is before a lot of the main matchups are getting going here. So really, that doesn't really change anything how that Preds and Sharks game turned out. But anyway, like I said, let's get right into the video. I'm going to start giving you guys my standings real quick, just to recap. I'm not really going to get into any detail. If you want to have more detailed analysis of each division, I made divisional videos of all my teams and where I had them ranked, but I'll just list them off here. So in the Atlantic, I got the Leafs winning the top seed and the President's Trophy. I just think they're going to have a really good season. Panthers I have in second, although not going to be in contention for President's Trophy in my opinion. I think they're still a good enough team. I have the Sens leaping into a top 3 spot in the Atlantic. I have the Bolts moving down to a wild card, although they're still going to be a very good team. They're going to make the playoffs. I just think the fatigue will set in a little bit, so they'll probably drop down. Have the Wings vastly improving, but still not making the playoffs as the 5th seed in the Atlantic. At the Bruins with the injuries, I think they fall to 6th, and the Sabres and the Habs, the last 2 teams in that Atlantic division. The Metro is more so of some controversial takes, but yeah, I got the Rangers and Canes at 1 and 2. Not really any surprise there. You can flip-flop those two. Got the Islanders having a massive bounce-back season and getting into that 3rd seed. I got the Devils sneaking into the playoffs as my sneaky hot take here, getting into that 2nd wild card in the Eastern Conference and making the playoffs as the 4th best team in the Metro. So I got teams, veteran teams like the Capitals and the Pittsburgh Penguins, both just barely missing the playoffs. But I do think, the age will start to show a little bit, and especially with some injuries that the Capitals have, it could affect them, throughout the season. And then, of course, I have the Jackets in 7th. I think they are, a better team. I just don't know with that division how much better they're going to be. I know a lot of people think they should be a lot higher, and I could see that case. Metro probably is the toughest division in my opinion, just in terms of pure competition. And then the Flyers, no question to me, is the worst team in that division. I even have them as the worst team in the East. I think they're going to really struggle this year. Getting into the West, like the East, I also have 4 teams of each division making the playoffs. So in first, I got the Avs, obviously, the reigning Stanley Cup champions. They should be the best team in that Central division. In my opinion, the Central is the weakest in the league. Blues and Wild, I got them in 2nd and 3rd. You can flip-flop both of them. I think they're both pretty much evenly matched. So really, it comes down to your personal opinion, but I think both of them will comfortably make the playoffs with over 100 points each. And the Preds I have as the 2nd wild card with 94 points, 4th in the Central division. I think they're good enough. I think they had an underrated offseason. And then I got teams like the Stars falling out. I'm not entirely sold on their offense. I just think, I think they're a little bit more inconsistent. The Jets, I have them having another struggle type of season. I really think they should kind of start retooling their team a little bit. I'm just not a fan of their core as a whole. And then the Coyotes and the Chicago Blackhawks, the 2 worst teams in the entire league. And then for the Pacific Division, I got the Oilers winning that division. I just like all their pieces that they have up front especially, and I think Jack Campbell greatly improves their goaltending. I got Vegas in 2nd. I think they're going to bounce back. I definitely think injuries did play a huge role in them missing the playoffs. A lot of their key guys were just limited to like half the season, and they just barely missed the playoffs. I think they should make the playoffs now. I think a lot of people don't have them in the playoffs. Maybe as a wild card team, I think they have the potential to be much higher. I got the Flames in 3rd, even though they have a really good core, and you could argue that they're a better team than they were last season. I still think they kind of overachieved a little bit offensively, and it could hurt them a little bit during the regular season, but still they're going to make the playoffs. I have the Canucks in 4th. I think their team's good enough. Bruce Boudreau is a winning coach as far as the regular season is concerned. I think the Canucks have enough depth offensively and great goaltending. I think they're good enough to get into that playoffs, which means I got the Kings falling to 5th, which is a huge hot take. I think a lot of people think that they're going to be like the 2nd or 3rd seed in that Pacific. I'm just not fully sold. I think I have questions about their goaltending, even their offense. I know they improved with Fiala. I don't consider it to be an elite offense, so we'll have to see what happens there. They can obviously prove me wrong, but for the Pacific Division, I got the Kings missing, which is a bit of a hot take. And then I got the Ducks in 6th. I think they'll improve. The Kraken will also improve, but in that Pacific, I still don't think they're nearly good enough to make the playoffs. And then I have the Sharks in last place. So with that, this would be my official playoff bracket for the 2023 Stanley Cup playoffs. These are how my matchups would look. On the top, I have the best team in the West facing the second wild card and then the 2 and 3 seed in that respective division. And then I got the top seed in the other division of that conference against the first wild card and then the 2-3 seed in that respective division. So that's how it's laid out. So beginning with the Colorado Avalanche and the Nashville Predators here. By no means do I think the Nashville Predators are going to be as bad. I think they're going to put up more of a fight in this series. It is a rematch from last year's playoffs. A big reason why they were swept, though, by Colorado is because they did not really get consistent goaltending. I know Connor Ingram did have a couple of, decent games, but if UC Saros is healthy, I think he gives the Nashville Predators a legitimate shot. But ultimately, I still have Colorado winning the series. I just think they're too deep. I do think it's going to go 6 games, though. Not going to be a sweep. Like I said, Nashville will put up a fight, but Colorado is just way too good on the blue line. They're too good up front. And I just think they're the better team. So giving them that series in the first round. Next up, I have the Blues facing off against the Wild in another rematch, except I do have the Blues with home ice advantage, and I do have them winning that series in 7 games. Again, this is one of those things. They're two very evenly matched teams. I don't really know who gets the edge in terms of their defense. I think their goaltending, like Fleury's a really good goaltender still at his age. Binnington, he steps his game up in the playoffs, and I think that could maybe be the difference. And also, the Blues, I think, are a little bit deeper up front, so I gave the Blues the edge there to advance to the second round. Next up, I would have the Oilers facing the Canucks in the first round. However, I do have the Oilers winning this series. I do think the Canucks are capable of going the distance there. I just think the goaltending could keep them in it. Thatcher Demko, I think, is better than Jack Campbell, and that could be a big reason why the Canucks could definitely put up a fight if, both these teams do end up matching up in the playoffs. But ultimately, if it comes down to the overall depth, I think the Edmonton Oilers are just a little bit better. I would even take them defensively, too. Obviously, you have Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. I think in a Game 7 situation, I think I would just bet on those superstars on the Oilers to come through in that game and take out the Canucks in the first round. As for the Vegas and Calgary matchup for the 2 and 3 seed in the Pacific, although a lot of people are going to disagree of me having the Vegas Golden Knights as the second best team in the Pacific, that doesn't necessarily mean that I believe in them at all come playoff time. I think there's a little bit of inexperience there in goal. Although I do believe in Logan Thompson, which is a big reason why I still think Vegas is good enough to be a top 2 team in the Pacific. I think the Flames are just a much more well-rounded, much more talented group. I think they have the better goaltending. I think their defense is a lot better. And just, they have some very solid superstar forwards that can kind of, combat and complement what, go against what Vegas has, right? With Jack Eichel, Mark Stone, and those guys. The Flames have Huberdeau, Toffoli. They can kind of cancel them out. Nazem Kadri, Elias Lindholm. I think the Flames just have the structure to be a really good team, a much better team come playoff time, more so than in the regular season. I think they're not going to dominate the regular season, I guess. In my opinion, I don't think they're going to dominate. Maybe a lot of people think otherwise, but I think they're probably going to really come out and play their best hockey come playoff time. So I actually have them sweeping the Vegas Golden Knights, not really sold in Vegas come playoff time. And Calgary and Edmonton will have a rematch of the Battle of Alberta in round number 2. In the Eastern Conference, because I have the Leafs winning the President's Trophy, they take on the second wild card. So it would go Maple Leafs versus Devils in the first round. And I do have the Leafs finally winning a playoff series. I just think if they are in this situation where they are a high seed and, they play a team like the Devils who don't really have a ton of playoff experience, I think it definitely benefits them. Just the fact that it's maybe an easier path for them to actually advance. So I have them beating the Devils in 5. I think that even though the goaltending on either side, I don't think is that great, I definitely would give the Leafs the edge because I don't really know who is going to be starting for the New Jersey if they do make the playoffs. I think Mackenzie Blackwood might be good enough to get them there if he can have a really good bounce back season and stay healthy. And Vanacek, I think, is decent too, but ultimately I think the Leafs are just more talented on the blue line and are a lot more lethal offensively, so I definitely give the Leafs the edge there. Then I would have the Panthers taking on the Sens in the first round as the 2-3 seeds in the Atlantic. And I have the Sens kind of upsetting there in 6 games over the Panthers. Look, I still think the Panthers are a good team. I know a lot of people might overreact and say that they're not even good enough to make the playoffs. I still think they are, but I'm just not really a fan of that team overall once they get into the playoffs. I know Ottawa has their issues defensively and even in goal a little bit, but so does Florida. They don't really have a great defense at all, really. I think they're going to give up a lot of chances this season. And even the goaltending, I know Bobrovsky had a decent year, and maybe Spencer Knight can come into his own, but I just think if this is an offensive series, I think Ottawa has the edge. I would definitely take their top six. I think Ottawa, the way they play in the preseason, Ottawa looks like their top six is going to be among the best in the entire NHL. Now, granted, they're playing a lot of games against Montreal, so you can take that with a grain of salt. But at the same time, I think Ottawa has the capability with their offense alone to make the playoffs. And not only that, but with the right matchup against a team like the Panthers, I think they're capable of getting to a second round. With that, I got the Rangers winning the Metro, and the first wild card, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I got the Rangers edging out the Lightning, but it's going to be a 7-game series, a very just grinded, low-scoring type of series. In my opinion, it's going to be the battle of the two best goaltenders in the league in Andrei Vasilevsky and Igor Shesterkin. But ultimately, in Game 7 at home in New York, I do have the Rangers edging them out. I think the Lightning, with their loss of depth, and I think just the fatigue setting in, just playing a lot of playoff runs these past few years, I think it could be an issue, which is why I think they're more so going to coast in the regular season. And as for the Rangers, I just think they're hungrier. They want to take another step forward from that Eastern Conference Finals appearance, and I think the Rangers get the revenge and advance to the second round and knock out the two-time defending Stanley Cup champions and 3-time Eastern Conference champions, I guess. And to conclude the first round, I got a matchup between the Hurricanes and the Islanders, and I have the Islanders with the upset here in a 6-game series over the Carolina Hurricanes. I definitely think Carolina maybe is the deeper team, especially offensively. I just have a feeling in the playoffs, the Islanders are just a team you can't really sleep on, and it seems like they play their best hockey once they get there. Especially, I think the defense is pretty even. I still think the Islanders are among the better defensive teams in the league, especially if they bounce back. It's going to be a main reason why they make the playoffs. But ultimately, I think this series, again, kind of like the Rangers-Lightning series, it could come down to goaltending. And if I had to pick between Ilya Sorokin or Frederik Andersen, who tends to be injury-prone and has struggles with his durability, I would definitely take Sorokin as a big reason why the Islanders end up advancing to a second round. And that could be a hot take because a lot of people don't even think the Islanders are good enough to make the playoffs, especially since they didn't really do much this offseason. But I definitely have a lot of faith in them. And I think they're capable of not only making the playoffs, but doing some damage once they get there. Now in the second round, a rematch of the second round series of last year between the Avalanche and the Blues. I have St. Louis getting their revenge here and knocking out the defending Stanley Cup champions. Not that I don't think Colorado is capable of going back-to-back. I just think it's a lot tougher for it to happen. And for me, I just look back at their playoff run last season, and I believe that the St. Louis Blues gave them their toughest test, honestly. And I think if Jordan Binnington was healthy and stayed healthy throughout that series, I think there was a legitimate possibility that the Blues could have actually upset the Colorado Avalanche. And, assuming everybody is healthy by this time in the playoffs, if Binnington plays the way he does in the playoffs, typically, I think he could be a difference maker here, especially with the question marks in goal for Colorado. I think the Blues have what it takes. I think they can they can match up well with the Avalanche offensively. I think they're among the deepest offensive cores in the league. So I definitely think with the offense, if it comes down to goaltending, I think Binnington could be enough for the Blues to actually advance. That's a bit of an upset, but I'm pretty high on the Blues this season. I think they have the potential to go really deep in the playoffs this year. Another second round rematch from last year, the Oilers and the Flames, and it's another situation of the Flames getting their revenge here. I have them beating the Oilers in 6 games, wrapping up that series at home and advancing to the Western Conference Finals. Again, hard to bet against McDavid and Draisaitl, especially if Markstrom plays that poorly like he did last year. That obviously turns the situation here a little bit. But for the Flames, I just think they're deeper, especially on the blue line. I think their goaltending is better, and I think they have the capabilities this season to kind of manage the Oilers, learn from their mistakes from last year, and be better equipped to shut them down, I guess. And I think they're just good enough to advance and take out the Oilers, who I think are just gonna kind of cave a little bit defensively, and I think the Flames are going to come through and get the revenge in advance to the Western Conference Finals. As for the East, again, because of the matchup here, I do have the Leafs advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals. I have them winning over the Ottawa Senators in 6 games. Again, I think the offenses are going to be, it's going to be an offensive series. I think both teams are going to be among the best offenses in the league. However, if it comes down to, the defense, I think the Maple Leafs are a little bit more structured in that way. The Ottawa Senators are just a little bit inexperienced. A lot of their guys have not tasted the postseason yet, so I definitely don't envision them getting any further than a second round. They probably, it's possible they don't even make the playoffs or come out of the first round. It really depends on matchup, but I think the Leafs are just better equipped to go further in the playoffs with higher seeding, especially if they take on an inexperienced team like the Senators. I think it'll be an advantage for them to come through and go on a deeper run. And as for the second round series that I have of the Rangers and the Islanders, I got the Rangers taking it in 5. Again, I think both goaltenders are among the greatest in the league. Like, both are like top 4 in the league. I think Sorokin's like the 3rd or 4th best goalie, and then Shesterkin's a top 2 guy. Really, I think the goaltending kind of evens out. But the reason why the Rangers get the edge is just they're a much more elite offensive team, and they're probably just going to score more goals. And the Islanders typically do have a lot of offensive droughts, so I think the Rangers are just better equipped to, for their offense to come through in a playoff series, and they'll be able to take out the other New York team and advance to an Eastern Conference Finals for the 2nd year in a row. So in the Western Conference Finals, I have the Blues versus the Flames, and I got St. Louis taking it in 5. I mean, at this point, I kind of took logic out of the window, even though I think either team is capable of winning. I just think the Blues are going to find a way to get back to the finals and, have a chance to win that cup like they did in 2019. Although I do think the Flames are good enough defensively maybe to shut them down, and goaltending could be a question mark on either side, especially with Binnington if his play slows down at this point of the postseason. I think if it comes down to offense, I definitely think the Blues are a much deeper team. And, the Flames are another team that could struggle a little bit more offensively at this stage. And, I think they'll dry up a little bit. So I think the Blues will have enough in the tank to take out the Flames and advance to the Stanley Cup Finals. That's just my pick, though. And as for the Eastern Conference Finals in a 6-game series, I'm going with the New York Rangers to advance to the Stanley Cup Finals. Again, 2 elite offensive teams. I think the blue line, especially for the Rangers, is improved, even though Toronto's is pretty good. This definitely comes down to goaltending in this situation, and I'm definitely betting on Igor Shesterkin, a Vezina caliber goaltender, won the Vezina last year. Although the Leafs, I think it's a pretty successful season that they're actually making some progress, or at least I have them making some progress in advancing to a finals. But I definitely think the Rangers win this matchup here and are in the Stanley Cup Finals, taking on the St. Louis Blues. And finally, in the Stanley Cup Finals, I have the New York Rangers taking out the St. Louis Blues in 6 games to take home the 2023 Stanley Cup. Very high on this Rangers team. They're still relatively young, and they went on a pretty surprise run to an Eastern Conference Finals, and I just think their ceiling is a lot higher. I definitely think this is a championship caliber team, a true Stanley Cup contender, and I think they have the capabilities to come out of the East. And, if it is a team like the Blues, I definitely think they're capable of beating them. Now, if it's like Calgary, I could see it be a little bit of a struggle if the Flames kind of wear them down defensively, especially, and even if Colorado gets back, I think Colorado would be the favorite to repeat. But for the Rangers, I just like their team overall. Very good offense with a ton of elite players. Defense is improved. I would actually probably take it over the Blues. I mean, it's pretty close, but I think the Rangers have improved enough and are going to improve just internally to be a much better defense and play a lot better in front of Igor Shesterkin. And of course, Igor Shesterkin, an amazing goaltender. I would take him over Binnington in that regard. So I think the Rangers, I'm just super high on this team, and I believe they have what it takes to win a Stanley Cup. And that is my pick for my Stanley Cup champion. This is my playoff bracket. So with that, wrapping up this video, I know it's a lot to take in because the playoffs, shouldn't even be thinking about that. Regular season hasn't even started yet, but I wanted to get these in, just my early takes, and see how it kind of plays out as the season progresses, and see how many teams that I got correct into making the playoffs even, because I know, some of these are kind of like hot takes, like the Devils making the playoffs, the Kings missing the playoffs, for example, but it's not always the same 16 teams that make the playoffs. Usually there is like 5 or 6 different teams that end up getting in, from last season where they missed the playoffs. So I think there is going to be some changes. The NHL has a ton of parity, so that's why I had to get in a little bit of some different teams here and really see how it plays out. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know, if you have early playoff predictions. Let me know your thoughts about that and where you have teams ranked, and who you think is an early favorite to win a Stanley Cup in your opinion. Love to know your thoughts. Love the engagement in the comments section. Let me know any questions you guys have. I'm sure to respond to you guys. And once again, thank you guys so much for the support. And I'll talk to you again in the next video. I'll see you guys later.